this video, I'm going to be making up my custom Sisters of Battle Covenant, inspired by the game Bloodborne and medieval Gothic. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to make these sisters truly sickening. It's tabletop time. So here on Tabletop Time, we have customized and built so many different miniatures, and I think it's finally time that my sisters got a customization of their own. So I'm going to take you through my thought process and design from start to finish on what I want my sisters to look like. And to do that, we're going to start with this kit. This is the reliquent at arms, and it's pretty much as close as I can find to the theme that I want to keep for my sisters. But we're just going to push it a little bit further to really establish that. And once we're done with that, we're going to customize up a Sister of Battle and see what that looks like too. This is a project I've wanted to do for a really long time, and I think that I'm finally ready. If you guys have seen a Jen video before, you know I need to sketch out my ideas before I can get started. I wanted to create a little mood board of things that I have and do inspire me for this look and aesthetic. Scrolls, candles, and stained glass windows are things that I've used in previous designs and I want to keep throughout. Now, this reliquent at arms is pretty good in terms of aesthetic that I want for my chapter. There's only a few changes I want to make here to make her look more gothic, like she's just stepped out of the game Bloodborne. I do think a paint job is really going to bring it to life, but for now, I think I have a concept down, so let's get down to painting. So this reliquent at arms comes with two different characters, but I'm going to be making up Astrid today. This kit was really easy to put together and was very much a monopose kit. So trying to do any conversion work here would be an absolute challenge that I'm not ready to take on just yet. Once she was all built to a standard that I was happy with, I could add on those extra details. Starting off by rolling out some griliput, that's green stuff and milliput mixed together. The first thing I wanted to make was purity seals. Now I found that the best method for this was to just roll out slabs of the griliput, and I even used some of the purity seals as a template on top of it. I would then leave this to dry and cut these out a bit later once they'd hardened. One of the most important aspects I needed to include on my model was the candles. I've added candles to absolutely everything I've created so far, so this model was no exception. I found a 3D file online which came with every type of candle you could imagine. So I grabbed these and 3D printed them up to stick on my reliquent at arms. I also made sure to use some of that griliput to make it look like melted candle wax. The last thing I wanted to add was just a little bit of detail to her base. I had some of the scenery left over from my Novitiate's Kill Team box that I felt could work really well here. These particular pieces look like iron gates that have been broken down, and I thought they would work really well with a Bloodborne aspect. And with that, all my conversions are pretty much done, so we can move on to painting. So my reliquent at arms is pretty much done. I have to say there are a couple of things I need to talk about. So this model in particular I chose because it already had a lot of the elements that I wanted to incorporate in my Sisters of Battle. This is kind of gothic medieval look that she's showing off, and I actually really like this model. I think it's really, really pretty, and it encompasses so much of what I want to incorporate into an army. So that means I actually didn't really need to change a whole lot. So it was a nice little project just to add a couple of things that I'd kind of already established in the Sisters I wanted to make, but she's pretty much perfect as she is, but I am happy with the changes I made. So with that all being said, I'm ready to spray her with a primer and give her a really cool paint job. Something kind of gothic and grimdarky, but I'm really excited to see how that process turns out. So while she's looking really cool and I'm super happy with this model, we have one question left to ask. What does a standard Sister of Battle look like when it comes to my army? So I'm going to paint her up first, and then I'm going to go ahead and convert a second model to be more in theme of the idea that I have. So to kick things off, I started putting in my base layers just to kind of give a feel and a color palette to the model. While I was layering these paints in, I was thinking in the back of my head that mood board I had made earlier. What kind of colors represented a Bloodborne and Gothic sort of look, and how I wanted to incorporate them into this model. After that, I felt like everything was looking a little too bright and I wanted to bring down the saturation just a tad. So I covered the entire model in a black ink acrylic wash. This was definitely more pigmented than just your normal wash, but I really liked the way it looks, and it left a matte finish. After that, I added in my layer colors again, just bringing it up to a brighter point. I was still playing around with a lot of the colors and how I wanted it to look aesthetically, so it took a bit of time to decide where I wanted all of these colors to sit. This painting phase definitely had an ugly stage, and it was about halfway through that I was kind of hitting a brick wall. But I knew I just needed to keep pushing and really try to make this paint job work. But before I continue painting, let me tell you about how I got started with my Sisters of Battle. So I started my Sisters Army back in 2019 when they first got their plastic release. I bought the limited edition kit because I knew 100% this was the army I was going to collect. I had been out of the hobby for a little while, so I really wanted to do a good job when it came to painting my Sisters of Battle, and I decided to pick our Martyred Lady as the order that I would paint. There were a few reasons why I chose to do this. I really liked the color scheme. First of all, I thought they were just kind of iconic Sisters of Battle from all the images I had seen previously. Plus, Saint Celestine is a total badass, and I wanted to include her in my army. Not only that, there were a ton of tutorials on how to paint our Martyred Lady as well, so I knew I'd have an easier time about it. And I have to say, painting all of that black armor is a bit of a steep learning curve, but it's something that I'm glad I stuck with. Now, one of my favorite kits that came out of the Sisters of Battle range was the Sacrosancts. Sacrosancts? The cool chicks that look like they're from medieval wartime. This kit was a glimpse into what a mashup between fantasy and sci-fi could look like, and I'm absolutely here for it. They inspired so much of the work that I wanted to do, even the massive cathedral build we did and my custom Sisters Knight. So it's safe to say, with the Sacrosancts kit, I didn't have to make a whole lot of changes. I've only built these guys up, I haven't painted them, but it is a project I'm really looking forward to. And I definitely want to include a couple of these units in my army. So where am I at now? Well, I have an entire combat patrol painted up as our Martyred Lady, and it's been a feat and a bit of time to get there, but being able to play games of combat patrol with a fully painted army is something I'm really proud of. But as a hobbyist and a painter, I do feel like I'm ready for the next stage in my hobby journey. Just like how the other guys on Tabletop Time have their custom armies, I want something that's custom too. And I think with all the skills I've learned throughout the years, I can do something really cool, combining the aspect of Gothic meets sci-fi. So I still have my order of our Martyred Lady, and that's not going to change. Instead, I'm going to be making a small sub-faction called a Covenant. This Covenant is going to be themed around that medieval Gothic meets Bloodborne vibe. I haven't thought of a whole lot of lore, but I would love to hear your thoughts. Maybe they deal with smaller skirmishes, or maybe they look for rare relics. I think this is something that will come along as I develop it a little bit more and show off the painting process. Speaking of which, let's get back to painting our reliquent at arms. One of the things I decided was this purple undertone wasn't really working for me. I was kind of going for more feminine colors when I think this Gothic palette I want is more of a stark contrast. So I decided to paint all of the purple over with a more bluish gray, which is more in theme of my current sisters anyway. I also changed this magenta pink into more of a red. Establishing this color palette now, I can see that the main focal areas are a bluey gray, a cream white, and a blood red color. I also opted for a non-metallic metal when it came to all of the armor. I felt like this worked a little bit better than trying to use metallics. Metallics sometimes can be a bit hard for me to drop the saturation on, so doing a non-metallic metal gave me more freedom onto how I wanted it to look. I should also mention the colors that I'm using throughout this painting process is actually a new kit I got for Christmas. I'm using the Chimera colors here, and I really love these paints. They're more of an artist's approach to painting, and mixing them up has been a lot of fun. If you guys would like a full review on these paints, I'd be more than happy to do so. Just let me know in the comments below. The last thing to do was paint up the base, which I did in more grayish colors, and then this model was pretty much done and ready to go. So having done my reliquent at arms, I had a pretty good vision on how I wanted my standard Sister of Battle to look. Now, I should mention that originally I was going to make just an average Sister of Battle, but the Sister Superior had a cooler stance, so I wanted to go with that. She would be the leader of my Battle Sisters unit. So I started off by clipping out all of the pieces that would make her together and deciding what other parts I wanted to change. I had a leftover sprue of the Sacrosancts that I know I could use for bits. Most importantly, they had one of these really cool helmets that I thought looked very medieval. It gave off this Gothic and medieval look, and I think the helmets just really look awesome. Another part of this kit that I wanted to use was their shield. Typically this model doesn't come with one, but I thought that the pose worked really well for having a shield. I needed to remove the hand from the back of this shield, so I did this by scraping it all off, and then applying a thin layer of plastic glue just to soften it all down. I grabbed the other gun from my Sister Superior kit and glued this on top. Another piece from the Sacrosanct kit that I absolutely wanted to add was this candelabra. You only get one of these in each kit, and I didn't use it for my previous one, so I wanted to add it here. It's kind of silly, but I really love it. So I glued this onto the backpack and left it off for now. That was pretty much it for gluing all of the pieces together, so I could go ahead and start converting. So why have I chosen to make my Sisters of Battle even more medieval? So as I mentioned before, something that I really enjoy is the concept of fantasy meets sci-fi. Especially when it comes to Sisters of Battle, I think they carry this theme really well. I think games like Bloodborne and even the old John Blanche art inspire me to create something more gothic and medieval for my sisters. Also, when you think about the gritty world of 40k, it's not too hard to imagine the Sisters of Battle in full plate armor against a giant demon of Khorne. I think it fits the aesthetic really well. Now, I'd already kind of dabbled in this theme before when I made up my sisters' novitiates. While the theme wasn't fully established yet, there is a little glimpse here of to what I wanted to achieve. So these were done up to about a year ago, and I hadn't fully decided how I wanted to paint them. These guys are okay, and they're part of a kill team, so they can look a little bit different, but I wasn't super happy with how these turned out. I wanted more of a gritty and dark look, which I'm trying to achieve in this paint scheme. Overall, I'm really happy with how this process is turning out, and it's been a lot of fun. Sisters really are an army that I'm really passionate about, and I think that these themes just fit so well, and I get to make more of the models that I really enjoy, which has been absolutely great. But what do you think? I have info dumped and shared so much information with you guys. I would love to know your opinions. What are your thoughts on the themes and ideas I've presented in this video, and do you have any of your own? Let me know by popping a comment down below, and I'll be sure to read these in another video. Again, I'm still not super confident when it comes to doing green stuffing or any kind of customization with my freehand, but nevertheless, I wanted to give it a shot and see what I could do. Looking at my reliquent at arms, one of the things that stood out the most was the cape that she had over the top. This is something new that I'm seeing in some of the sisters' designs, is them having this little shawl over the top of their shoulder pads. So I wanted to incorporate this here by trying to make my own. It took a couple of goes to get this to fit in nicely because she is in quite an exaggerated pose. I rolled out my girly part and made a layer as thin as possible, wrapped it around her shoulders, and tucked it in nicely. Once that was looking okay, I left it to cure so I could come back later and cut out all the pieces. I could remove the extra trimming and add on those little rips and tears that I thought made it look really cool. The last thing I needed to create was definitely these purity seals. I will say my purity seals look a little bit bigger than the normal ones, but I just say the bigger the purity seal, the closer to the Emperor you are. The last thing I needed to add was a base for her to stand on. I cut up some of the terrain I had used on a previous build and gave her a pillar to stand on. After adding in a bit of texture to the base, she was pretty much done. And that makes my custom sister superior. But before I show you some sick reveals of my models, I'm going to go ahead and name these two characters. The first two official characters in my new Sisters of Battle Covenant. The reliquent at arms name is not going to change, but the spelling will change just a little bit, becoming Astrid, and my first Sister of Battle will become Freya. A huge thank you to everyone over on Patreon. It's because of you guys I get to make super passionate and fun videos like this one, and again, I'd also love to hear your thoughts on what you think about my custom sisters chapter. If you'd like to join our Patreon, you get awesome perks just by signing up, and all of the links are down in the description below. Again, a huge thank you to each and one of you, and I hope you all enjoyed this video. This has been a super fun project, and I'm really glad that I was able to start this process. It's been on my mind for a really long time, and I think I have the skills necessary now to be able to really do this army justice. But don't forget to leave your thoughts below because I'd love to hear what you think, and we'll see you in another video.